Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're dealing with a game tonight between two struggling teams, one surprisingly struggling and one not so surprisingly. The Buffalo Bills have been dealing with a ton of defensive injuries and are coming off a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars in London to barely beat the New York Giants and then to lose to the New England Patriots last week. So they have lost two of their best defensive players in recent weeks in linebacker Matt Milano and cornerback Tre'Davious White. And their defense in general has just been decimated. Now, the Bucs, on the other hand, their offense has been sputtering ever since they came off their bye as teams are figuring out Dave Canales' scheme. Canales is the offensive coordinator the Bucs hired before the season, and he'd never called plays before. So money is on the Bills figuring things out before the Bucs do. The Bills are 8.5-point favorites going into tonight's game. But what if they don't figure it out first? The Bills are putting Chris Godwin and Mike Evans versus inexperienced cornerbacks. Bills are allowing a 78.5% completion rate to the wide receiver position. The offensive line of the Bucs should give Baker plenty of time to throw to those receivers. And if they don't, Baker is third in passer rating against pressure this season. So the running game for Tampa Bay could even get going too. It's been a disaster this season. Buffalo's been allowing the most yards after contact and the ninth most DraftKings points per game to the running back position. So the million-dollar question for tonight: will this Bucs offense show up and capitalize on a Bills decimated defense? Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Simon Edwards at Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. And tonight we're going to be looking at a game between two struggling teams. We got the Buffalo Bills versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're playing in Buffalo with Buffalo as 8.5 favorites. And tonight I have a special guest, Spread Astaire. Spread has joined me on a bunch of these shows, and we have had a lot of success when Spread's been on, and glad to have him back to try to run it back tonight with another Buffalo game. Spread, what's going on, man?
Simon, I'm excited today, but hey, I'm a little nervous here because my bread and butter, the Jacksonville Jaguars, aren't on the showdown slate. So we'll see if we can replicate some of that success with some other teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've done pretty good with Buffalo when we had them against Jacksonville, but yeah, the Jacksonville was the missing link on this one. So hopefully we can figure it out. It's going to be an interesting game because we have a team in Buffalo that has been decimated on their defense. They've lost Matt Milano and they lost Tre'Davious White, the cornerback, in the recent weeks, and they are two of their best defensive players. So we have a lot of matchup opportunity for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the way that these lineup optimizers are spitting out lineups today, you wouldn't think that. And so we're going to find an opportunity to build a Tampa heavy lineup that'll come up after this, after we start with a chalky lineup. But before we get into any of that, please hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and hit like on the video. Going to be looking for 15 likes today so I can get a shorter video out later on tonight before the game starts with complete thoughts on, four picks. I'll give you four of my favorite picks in a short video. So we're going to launch into this now with the DraftKings. Oops. Let me just add that to the stage here. All right. So we're going to take a look at all these different players in the
Oh, no, I think Simon froze up, not me this time. And we were just talking about I had frozen on each episode. So while he's coming back, I'll jump in here and help us out. Of course, Josh Allen is the highest priced player here. If he's just in the flex, he's at 11.8. His number one receiver, Stephon Diggs, is sitting there at 11.4. Then we got Mike Evans at 10K, Baker Mayfield at 9.2. So a lot of interesting options here. You back, Simon?
Yep. Thanks for.
We talked about me freezing the whole time, and then you froze up on me. But I went over the top price players there. But go ahead and continue.
Perfect. Yeah. No, Josh Allen. He's been struggling a little bit this year. His recent weeks, we saw a 14, almost 15-point game against the Giants, but he had a 13-point game against the Jets. So there's been a couple weeks where he's struggled. These 23, 22-point leads or point games, I don't know if those would be enough to get you a win in the captain position with his price being as expensive as it is. He is looking at 11.8 for his salary in flex. And then, of course, that would be 17.7 in the captain position. So, Spread, you gave your thoughts on Josh Allen already? Like, are you on?
No, I was just saying he's the highest price guy on the slate. Stephon Diggs coming at number 2. Those will be 2 popular options there. And, of course, they will be. But as we've talked about before, we found some ways to go ahead and get different. So, for our chalk build, we'll include those 2. But, a way to really take down a lot would be to get a little different there.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely have a alternate universe lineup coming up after we build a chalky lineup for sure. Another chalky player tonight should be Mike Evans. Mike Evans is the 3rd most expensive. Salary is going to be tight tonight. I tried building a few lineups earlier, and salary is going to be tight tonight with all these, these stud players and just players priced up in general compared to what we've been used to recently. Steph Diggs is only 400 below Josh Allen. So it's going to be tough to get one of those guys in the captain spot without, just limiting the rest of your team. Steph Diggs, though, has been on
Simon,
fire.
Can I jump in real quick and make a point off you saying the salaries are higher? So I felt like a couple of these other showdowns that we did where they were, I would say they were generous with us, low priced. It felt like some guys were on sale. It felt like you had to get the captain right because you could get a lot of guys that we thought were pretty safe for raw points. This one, you're going to have to choose the right players. You're not going to be able to get a bunch of the top guys in there. And that's even if you go different and go with the cheaper captain, right? Even with the cheaper captain, I made some too here. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I think that makes it a little bit more fun. And also, I don't think we need to worry about the captain as much. Just get the right people in the lineup. Whereas the showdown we did 2 weeks ago, you had to nail that captain.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. It's going to be one of those days. It's just this is a multi-entry night. I feel like you're going to have to try a couple different combinations. You're going to have to probably enter your contests multi-entry tonight. If you do a single entry, good luck to you because it's going to be tough to figure it out because we got so many names here and they're all expensive that could be in that lineup. And it's going to be hard to, figure out a way to jam in all the guys that you want to tonight without, limiting your lineup. Putting in a $200 guy at captain or something is going to just limit your entire lineup. But I feel like a lot of people will probably try and go a direction like that tonight. But yeah, so we got Diggs is expensive. Mike Evans is another expensive one. He's at 10K. So Mike Evans has also been on fire. I guess the past 3 weeks, he's had a couple rough ones in there. Week 6 against Detroit, he only scored 9 points. Week 7 against New Orleans, he only scored 7 points. But he usually has trouble against New Orleans. I think him and the cornerback over there always getting those fights. But against Philly, he scored 17, 32 against Chicago, and 18.6 against Minnesota before coming back last week with a 20-point game against Atlanta. Mike Evans is a guy that I'm definitely interested in, especially against this banged-up Buffalo defense. Spread, what is your thoughts on Mike Evans tonight?
Yeah, he's going to be a great option. So are we talking about from a chalky build perspective, though?
I guess
Like,
just
are
a
you going to
general
throw
thought.
Evans in? Let's say we're doing a 4-2 Bills build. Is
Mhm.
Evans one of the two that you want?
That's going to be tough, man. It's going to depend on you know, on who the other players are. You know, it's really going to we're going to have to do some experimenting to get as much upside into our lineup without making dumb decisions, basically. You know.
Right. And I think that's a fun decision to really talk about right now. So on a 4-2 Bills build, you're giving
Yeah.
a lot of salary. If you put Mike Evans in there, that's a lot of salary on your run back, right?
Yeah.
So maybe on a 4-2 Bills build, you're thinking, hey, this game could be pretty close. Let me break down the game real quick, and then we'll talk about the various ways, because that's the fun thing about Showdown. As far
Yeah.
as betting, we can go for both aspects, right? We can
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
for the Bills dominate, or the Buccaneers keep it closer, or maybe get the upset on the road. So the Bills are now 9-point favorites. When you have a favorite who's a touchdown or more, right? On Thursday Night Football, since this has really got popular, they're 36-23 against the spread. So what's that telling me is that more often than not, these big home favorites, and it has to be a home favorite. I'm sorry, a home favorite, a 7 or more, they're getting it done. They're getting it done. It's telling me this is tough for the weaker teams with less preparation to go against a more talented team. Right? Maybe the idea is, even if Todd Bowles, who's I think he's a really good defensive coordinator, head coach, we'll talk about that, but it gives them less time to try and come up with some schemes here, right? Not to
Yeah.
mention, they've got to be focused on their division games. The only way the Buccaneers are going to make the playoffs is to win the division. That wild card's not there, right? Is there the chance that they just walk through this one, throw together a basic game plan, execute, and maybe even just work on some things that they want to get better for an upcoming Falcons or Saints matchup? That's also a possibility. So
Yeah.
we're talking. Let's
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I
I
was
was
just going
going
to
to
say
say
reasons why we
to
would
that
build
point.
Bills heavy build.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to say to that point, mentioning the point about wanting to work on things that have been struggling recently. The running game is a huge piece of that puzzle for the Bucs that have been struggling lately. They haven't been able to get that running game going, and a head coach like Bowles is chomping at the bit to get that running game going.
Right. And it's
And they have
almost stubborn with it.
yeah, yeah, and
Where
you have
I've seen games and back the Buccaneers,
yeah.
for example, and you just want them to get away with it. It's not working. Let Baker try. Even a dump off is going to work better than just you busting Rashad White up the middle, because it's not working. So another reason why to like a Bills heavy build, right? If
Yeah.
we're advocating for a chalk build. I'm just looking at this Buccaneers schedule, right? So they got a great win in week 1, right? Wait, it's over the Vikings. Does that really seem like that great win anymore, right? We've kind of downgraded the Vikings. Talking about them last night, I bet over 8.5. My buddy's like, that's dead. So this team isn't as good as we expected. Then they get a 10-point win over the Bears. The Bears are inarguably a bottom 5 team in the NFL. Okay, great. You beat a bottom 5 team. We're not really upgrading you that much. Then they went against a solid team in the Eagles. They were at home, and they got blown out 25-11. That was a rough one. Then they get a great win over New Orleans, 26-9, and I think we all upgraded them. But since then, I feel like they've had 2 disappointing performances. Not the fact that they lost to the Lions, who are a very good team, but they lost 20-6, and the offense was completely impotent. Then losing to the Falcons at home, I felt that was a bad loss, and they couldn't get things going on offense. So when I was making my numbers for this game, I have the Bills winning by 12. Even at -9, I still have a pretty nice edge there. And when I'm looking at betting this game right now, it seems to me like Bills are pass. But that's the one thing about Showdown. I can build a lot of these Bills heavy builds, but I'm going to run it back with a couple Tampa ones as well. Just because I think that the Bills heavy builds are going to be so dominant. It's going to really be tough for me to differentiate where I don't need to be perfect on a Tampa build if they end up winning, right? Because there's just going to be less competition for those builds. So those are just kind of my overall thoughts on the slate when we're talking about the ways to build, and we're using my betting knowledge to kind of create our strategy towards how many builds. Because you talked about multi-entry. So then the last thing I would encourage the viewers to think of is how do I want to split this up? And I usually like to do it in like a little 10 entry thing. So if I have 10 entries right now, I'm probably going to go 6-4, 7-3 for Bills dominant.
Yeah.
Either 6 of them or 7 are going to be Bills dominant.
Yeah. One nugget that I heard, like when I was listening to the local podcasts and stuff, they were pointing out how the Bucs have been doing better on the road than at home this year too. Spread. Do you have any insight on that?
That's a great point. When I just went through those results, and you're right? Look at those disappointing performances that I'm talking about. The first one was in Minnesota, so good win on the road. Then they get that big win over the Saints, and then we're a little disappointed that they failed to protect Raymond James with those two disappointing losses. So that is a good point, right? Maybe we do sneak in 4 Bucs builds and only 6 there if I'm doing 10 entries here.
And this is the thing with the Bucs. Like, it's a complete crapshoot with the Bucs, right? Because like I advocated for the Bucs the last time they were on a primetime game, and I was thinking along the lines that Baker was playing well and everything, and they were huge underdogs.
And that was the Saints game, right?
Yeah. And then they ended up like losing, pretty big to the Saints. But like in tonight's game, we're talking about a Buffalo defense that has just been destroyed, right? Like they don't have a solid secondary now. They don't have, they're missing Matt Milano, the linebacker. They're just overall, like, they got a bunch of other injuries too. Let me read them off tonight.
So the one that I want to bring up, Simon,
yeah,
is Ed Oliver. And when I checked before we jumped on, he's questionable. Maybe some news has come out, right? Because it's about that time. I think he's huge. I think that if he plays, I want to lower my Rachaad White. If he's out, now White at what is he, 8K? A lot more interesting if Ed Oliver's out. So a little bit of an NBA feel on the wait for the news there on Ed Oliver and how much Rachaad White you want to have in your lineup.
Well, Rachaad White is going to be important too. Like, just like what we were talking about a few minutes ago with the fact that we know that Bowles is going to want to get that running game going. That running game, if they can get that going, and then they have Baker, like, his play action working, like where he's able to, to throw to Evans and Godwin, like all of this kind of comes together with that running game. If that running game can get going, then, like the Bucs stand a chance, maybe not to necessarily to win, but we don't care if they win if they're able to put up points tonight, if they're able to put up fantasy points to the point where, we can see, like a 4-2 Bucs build. That's going to make you hugely different from the field tonight. And it's a completely realistic thing that can happen with the weapons that the Bucs have. And what you're saying about Rachaad White, I'll just say it right now. Like, I think the build that we can do with a 4-2 Bucs build involves Rachaad White as a captain. Like, that's a salary relief, that we're going to have. It's a great matchup for Rachaad White. The question is, the $1 million question is going to be, can the Bucs get that running game going tonight? Like, can Rachaad White get it going tonight and make an impact on this game? Because if Rachaad White is able to rush tonight for, like, let's say he rushes for 100 yards, a touchdown. The Bills are also bad against the pass with the running backs. So let's say he gets another 4 targets for 20 yards there too, right? Like, Rachaad White could end up being like a 20+ point fantasy scorer at a cheap salary that we can plug into captain and open up our entire lineup for some of these studs, like without sacrificing, and having to put in too many scrubs into our lineup. We don't have to go dumpster diving too much. But yeah, we can totally get into that alternative, game script, when we're building that Bucs build. But for the favorite, like that we're working on now, I think that, there are some good matchups that Buffalo obviously has, with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But when we look a little bit further down, James Cook, his situation is going to be impacted by Vita Vea. Vita Vea is another injury that we're looking at tonight, Spread. And Vita Vea is going to have a huge impact on James Cook's success tonight. What are your thoughts on James Cook tonight?
He's been doing much better. And one thing we need to note for James Cook, starting to get some of those red zone carries. And it's kind of weird because I know that for fantasy, right, we love it. But I always like the idea of having the different back to come in for the goal line. And I know fantasy hates it, right? Because James Cook gets you 50 yards on the drive, and then Damian Harris, or who's out, but you understand my point, gets the touchdown. Yeah. But Cook was in there on the red zone work. That greatly increases his value, especially on a showdown slate where the touchdowns are so important, right? Where we can have even stats, and it's a guy that's going to go in the end zone that ends up being in the optimal captain slot. So you definitely have to like James Cook here tonight. We're waiting on news on those defensive lines to see how these running backs go. But yeah, you have to like James Cook and the way that they've been using him. You talked about dump offs, another one. He's been doing really well in the passing game, and it's a lot of fun to see his development, especially because for me, running backs either pop right off the bat or they don't. And when he came and he failed, just like Zach Moss did in that situation the year before, I just thought, oh boy, we're never going to see it with this guy. That's too bad. And it's a pretty cool story that he's actually emerging in year 3, which is pretty rare for a running back. They usually either have it or they don't. So, yeah, I'm excited for James Cook. When we're looking at a Bills heavy build, though, so you're talking about salary elite. So Cook's sitting there at 12.9. I also was a little bit interested in Dalton Kincaid at 7.5. We should get a lot more snaps with Dawson Knox in that injury report.
Yeah. Dalton Kincaid is definitely interesting. And, the injury to Knox is going to affect, the entire Bills offense, because Knox is out, and who's the Quentin Williams, the tight end, Quentin Morris, he's out too tonight, right? So the Bills are going to be pretty decimated at tight end tonight too. So they're going to be forced to do a lot less, 2 tight end sets. So we're looking at, more 3 wide receiver sets tonight.
And that might help them.
Yeah.
The 2 tight end sets haven't been working.
Right.
They haven't been good.
Yeah.
To go back to Cook, though, Knox, best blocking tight end on the roster, could lower his value just a tad.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Kincaid can't really block. He's a big wide receiver. Yeah, I mean, he really is, right? You're going to notice he's going to be motioned out in that slot or inside the slot if they have 3 wide on the same side. Maybe a little bit of drawback there on Cook, but at the same time, maybe it's an advantage because you're going to get the PPR and they dump off rather than run the ball. Yeah,
definitely more value there in the passing game for Cook. Like, what's he done recently in the passing game too? Like, he's he had 3 targets last week, 4 targets a couple weeks ago. He gets about 3 or 4 targets a game for the most part. So yeah, definitely some interesting value there on Cook. And White, we already went over White. Godwin is another guy who should benefit from tonight's matchup with Bills being banged up, but also Tre'Davious White being out. Like, that's should mainly impact Mike Evans, but it's going to impact Godwin too, because Godwin's been running out wide this season, opposed to his traditional like slot role. So what are your thoughts on Godwin here tonight, Spread?
You got to like him in the PPR format. Evans has the more explosive play potential. Godwin seems like he's more reliable on, third and short, second and short, getting him the ball, going for that yard after catch. So while Mike Evans to me has more touchdown potential, I expect Godwin to get more targets.
Yeah, for sure. And Godwin's actually, I think, leading the team in catches, but he has not scored a touchdown yet this year. So that's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he has his first touchdown tonight.
Yeah, I think the issue there is he's not a great red zone target, and then you have two others with Kate Otten, right? He's out there for us tonight. Big body in the red zone. Mike Evans, you don't really need to worry about being picked. He's much better at 50-50 balls. So unless Godwin's wide open on the break, Baker's not trying for him in the red zone. Godwin's more of a 20 to 20 guy right now. Evans and Otten getting those red zone looks.
So, I mean, that's an interesting point, Spread, because if you're building a lineup and you want to put Godwin into the captain, you got to take that into consideration. You got to take into consideration, if Godwin's scoring a touchdown, it's going to be from outside the red zone, so he's going to have a long one. So, just something to think about when you're building your lineups tonight. Gabe Davis, he's another, he's kind of interesting.
He's finally finding some consistency, right, Simon?
Yeah.
Last year he was the epitome of boom or bust.
Right. Yeah, and this year, he's had he had that stretch there, but like the last couple weeks, he's just been kind of limp. Like with a 1.6 fantasy points last week against New England, and then 4.1 against the Giants. Like it's almost. He had decent targets those weeks too, with 5 targets and 4 targets. But what do you think's going on there? You think it was just a matchup thing, or you think that that's him going back to his old ways?
Probably a little bit of both, but I'd say more of a matchup thing. We knew that team was flat coming back from London. We had talked about it being an issue. The 3 teams seemed to manage to avoid it, it being Baltimore, Jacksonville, and Atlanta, but Buffalo did fall prey to it. So we can go ahead and give them a pass for that one. And then New England was a weird week, so I'm willing to throw that out. I'm still like Gabe Davis here, and I think he's got a great opportunity to shine tonight against a Buccaneers defense that could be vulnerable to the pass.
Yeah, and Gabe Davis at a salary of $6,800, is definitely going to make him interesting in, a night where we're looking for some salary relief.
Exactly.
It was good. Like, and here's another thing, Spread. Like, Tyler Bass is 5,400. I don't think I've seen a kicker that high in a long time.
I think Bill's defense is what? Bill's defense. Oh, 4,400. That's not. I was on the captain's slide.
Yeah, like 5,400 for Bass, and it's like, look at his game log. Like he's had like 3 weeks where he had double-digit points. So he really, hasn't been like that spectacular. I mean,
it's priced up, Simon. Khalil Shakir, 3,200.
Yeah,
pretty high for the fourth option.
He felt like he was getting a little bit more work last week. But I think like with Shakir too, Shakir's an interesting guy to me tonight. Like with if we're assuming that the Bills are going to be playing with more 3 wide receiver sets with the tight end injuries that they've had, I think Shakir is a guy that can benefit from that. And he could be, like at 32.
My worry is that Kincaid just becomes the 3rd wide receiver.
Yeah. No, that's true too. Let's see.
I mean, 3,200 for a guy that's averaging 3.1 fantasy points on the year.
Yeah,
prices are high tonight, Simon.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's more of a like a 4 targets last week, so people think that like he's kind of assuming that.
And hey, that could be right because Dawson Knox got hurt last week during the game, right? So maybe people are noting that adjustment, and maybe I'm slow to it.
Well, I just think that Shakir is a guy, when he came into the league, there was a lot of hype around him. Like a lot of people thought that he was going to be like this breakout receiver that kind of took that number 2 role in Buffalo. And, the way that Buffalo, plays their receivers, it never really materialized, right? But, if he starts to show some upside now with this opportunity, we could see some bigger things for Shakir. He wasn't impressing very much in the preseason, if you recall. Like, it was like there was a reason why Hardy kind of took over, like, in the depth chart. But Shakir came in with some hype. He's got talent. It's just a matter of, like, is he going to put it together? But he's getting it. He might have the opportunity starting tonight with that tight end depth issue.
Yeah. And so we'll see how that goes. I just thought that price tag was pretty high. I was thinking he was going to be a lot lower there. And at 3,200, I almost feel like they've priced me out unless it's just one build where I'm trying to get different. But not someone I'm circling at that price point.
So, Dalton Kincaid, who Spread was just talking about, rookie tight end, like one of the like most put over like tight end classes in recent memory. And Dalton Kincaid was, like close to the top of that class. Last week, he had 15.5 points against New England. That was his first week over double-digit points, and it came with Dawson Knox getting out of the game. Dawson Knox was hurt last week, as like Spread and I had been talking about. So that opened up a window of opportunity for Dalton Kincaid here. Spread, you are a fan of Dalton Kincaid. What are your thoughts on him? I know, like, Tampa Bay has been tough against tight ends, and they faced some real tight end competition this season. They shut down, like Pitts and Jonnu last week. They shut
Arthur
down
Smith
Laporta.
did that.
Yeah, Laporta.
That's a good one, though, because he's involved there.
Dallas Goedert only scored 9 points against them.
Another good one.
Yeah, Cole Kmet, you take him or leave him. Hawkinson is the highest one. He scored 11.5 points against them. So they've been tough on tight end this season. But what is it that you like about Kincaid tonight?
Targets at the price point. Only 5K in the flex. And what did he have for targets last week? 8?
8 targets last week, yeah.
There's no reason to think that won't continue. I guess why I didn't look at that Tampa versus tight ends trend. You bring up some good points because you listed a lot of talented players. I know you even poo-poo Kmet, but I still think he's in the top half of the league, right?
Right.
Of tight ends. Yeah. He's in the top 15. It's a pretty good list. Shutting down Goddard, he's been huge the last couple of weeks. Yep. So I guess that maybe that's the reason why that I feel like we're getting a discount here. We thought going into this, right? There was a reason Dalton Kincaid was being picked so high when we were doing these best ball drafts over the summer. And we thought it would be a perfect third target for Josh Allen. Diggs is the combination of both speed and hands. Gabe Davis gave you a little more of speed. Now he comes in as the bigger hands target that can make some contested catches. Did a great job of that in college. Looks like he has the skill set to do it. It hasn't happened yet, but this is a rookie establishing rapport with a very talented quarterback. Seems like it's only going to go up from here. And it wouldn't surprise me, right? A rookie has a slow 4 or 5 games, then they get the rapport, and he gives us that potential, right? Maybe ends up winning a best ball playoffs for someone, right? As they fully get into the groove there in Buffalo. So I'm high on Kincaid. Full disclosure, I was high on him in best ball too. I have a lot of Kincaid shares, so maybe this is me just trying to speak it into existence. But just because of the target share at that price point, we talked about, Kincaid, now he's averaging 7.4 at 5K, and Khalil Shakir was 2.1 or 3.1 fantasy points at 3,200. I just feel you're getting some good value there. Maybe the biggest misprice on the board to me, I'm surprised he's not a little more expensive. For example, I'd much rather have Kincaid than Tyler Bass. I'll tell you that much, and Bass is 400 more. So it feels to me like we're getting a nice deal here. It feels like when we do these showdowns, right, the backup quarterback is kind of the dividing line, right? Where they put these backup quarterbacks in and they price them up just so people don't stash them in their lineup. and do that for an injury, right? Because I guess if they were like 1,000, it might be worth it here. But we see all the backup quarterbacks sitting here at 6K, and then there's the dividing line. Kincaid going below there, and who's there in the kicker for Tampa, Latavius Murray, who I guess could get some touchdowns, and Tyler Bass. I think he's the best option in that range.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely would take him over Bass tonight. Latavius Murray. We've been talking about how James Cook has been getting more of those red zone carries. That kind of kills the value of Murray, even though what's his face is out. Damian Harris is out again tonight. But have we seen anything out of him recently? Have we seen anything out of what's his face? Where'd he go?
Who? Murray?
Yeah, he's like disappeared from my. Oh, there he is. Like I just.
One thing I would say about Murray is this is I'm not even using charts. I'm just watching the games and noting, hey, James Cook was in there. Those weren't very close to the goal line though. So I would say like on a pass interference, and then they get the ball on the 1, or if they're on the 1, Murray's going to get the carries. It's just from the 4, 5 and out, but these are great opportunities for Cook, especially with receiving. So just the fact that he's on the field means a lot to me. Latavius Murray's still live though, because I think he will be the option on 1st and goal from the 1 or the 2.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Josh Allen with that banged up shoulder. They probably tend to want to use him a little bit less on that 1 yard line and just bring in a bruiser like Murray. So Murray in that case would be interesting because I expect that they're going to be in the red zone a lot tonight.
No one falls forward better than Latavius Murray.
Yeah,
the guy is the master of getting an extra 1.5 yards after contact. I mean, it should be a clinic on how you should run. And they're talking about falling forward. That's one of the reasons why they're saying David Montgomery's getting carries over Gibbs. Just little techniques like that give you an extra yard. That's what's getting you in, giving you a majority of the carries. So this is an important skill here for Latavius Murray, and we can't dismiss him there at 4,800 just because of what I said. Although it's going to be kind of a contrarian build there, he's not going to be in a lot of them. Maybe as I'm rounding out these ones and just don't want Kincaid in every lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's going to get you different. I don't have a look at the ownership right now, but I think, you would have to assume, oh, here it is. You would have to assume that Murray is going to be significantly less owned than Kincaid tonight. Yeah, let me dig through this real quick. Latavius Murray, I see him at total ownership at about 22%. So yeah, total ownership at 22%. Yeah, versus
I think that speaks to how high things are priced up top. Because I thought he was going to come in a lot less.
Well, with Showdown, like I think like if you see a guy at 22%, that's usually a pretty good, a pretty good ownership, like cheap ownership, especially for a guy like with a role that he has in that red zone. So people are expecting him to get like maybe one touchdown tonight, but he's going to have to do a lot more than score 1 touchdown to get in the optimal tonight is the problem. And you're going to need a 2 touchdown game probably from Murray for him to show up in an optimal, and he's 4,800. So I mean, if you can when you're building your game scripts tonight, just keep that in mind with Murray. Like you want to account for two of those touchdowns tonight. So maybe it's like if you put Stephon Diggs without Josh Allen, maybe that would be a good one to put in just Stephon Diggs and Latavius Murray, for example, because Murray would be accounting for those touchdowns instead of Josh Allen, and keeping Allen's point total suppressed, and Allen's looking at 11.8K for his salary tonight. So just something to keep in mind with game scripts tonight. We went over the Shakir. Let's the kicker for Tampa Bay. Yeah, I kind of like if he falls to me, then I'll play him. I'm not going to go out of my way to play him tonight because I think that if Tampa Bay is going to be in this game, they're going to have to score touchdowns. And if they are getting blown out, then McLaughlin's not going to get used. What are you have any thoughts on the kicker there, Spread?
I would say the kicker, right, is always the biggest roll of the dice. It's got the most just table game gambling feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no specific matchup. I mean, I guess we could look at red zone defense, but this year, every team's been good in the red zone. Red zone offense is the worst it's been since 2011 or whenever they changed these rules where wide receivers can't be touched, or even breathed upon. So I think the kickers are kind of a crapshoot. I heard, right, exactly what you said. If I land on him, fine. There's no reason to go out of your way to put on him. Right. If you end up on 4,400, though, there are worse options for you to fill out your line. For example, or 4,600. If you land there, I don't rebuild, right? Sometimes we get to the final spot and you're, time to rebuild. I think if you land on McLaughlin, you're fine. Yeah.
I think the same thing. He hasn't done much this year, but he's a type of guy, with the Buffalo defense being as banged up as it is, if Tampa Bay is able to get in the scoring position multiple times tonight, they've actually struggled in the red zone this year. So, I mean, that would open things up for McLaughlin. Like with them, I would imagine that they're going to have a easier time moving the ball tonight than they are scoring. So, that sets up McLaughlin for, potential, if he fits in the build, like Spread was saying, otherwise I'm not going to go out of my way for him tonight. I don't think. Bills D, probably not going to have a ton of exposure to them. Baker Mayfield's been good at taking care of the ball. He hasn't been sacked a lot. And the Bills D just is decimated, like I've been saying this whole show. Spread, do you have any interest in Bills D tonight?
Yeah. I know Baker Mayfield's been good this year, but he also does have a little YOLO in him. And we'll see as their season starts to slip away. It's just a desperation, stay in. And also, these are two different caliber of talents on the team, right? Tampa Bay is the team that came into the season with a win total of 6.5. The Buffalo Bills were at 11. So even though Buffalo's not living up to expectations and Tampa Bay got off to a nice little hot start, the talent is different, and there's a difference between avoiding turnovers against, although to be fair, I guess they have played some pretty good defenses. So I'm trying to think those really bad losses, the Saints, we have them as a good defense. Falcons defense is underrated. Right? And that defense is getting things done. So I guess if we can avoid turnovers against this defense, it really does show what he is. But this is going to be a tough environment tonight. Gets behind, maybe forces some things. I'm not against the Bills defense, especially on our, if you want to go 5-1 Bills, I almost think it's mandatory. Yeah. Because if you're going 5-1, you're saying the Bills are blowing them out. They're not blowing them out by not making big plays on both sides of the ball. So if you like a 5-1 build, throw them in there. At the 4-2s, they're a solid option.
Yeah, definitely good points there. Spread like 5-1 builds, it makes total sense to put the Bills D in there tonight because I mean, like Spread saying, it's like if you put the Bills D in there too, like they might be under owned tonight with all the like the injuries that they have and everything, and people kind of shying away from them. But like you're gonna need a Bills defense to participate in a blowout. So if you're thinking a blowout script, Bills defense, I definitely you want to take that into consideration. The Bucs D, I'm interested in the Bucs D too. Like if I'm building the Tampa lineups, just because they have an aggressive defense. They have, like one of the leading teams in takeaways this year. They're one of the highest, like sack rates this year too. But the Bucs defense, just in general, they're just an aggressive defense, and they're facing off against an aggressive Josh Allen, who is tends to be prone to mistakes. So the Bucs defense, if you're building Bucs builds, I don't hate the Bucs defense with all their upside.
Yeah, and Simon, closing all those windows didn't help. I'm frozen up again, so I can still hear you, but it looks like I'm caught in thought on the scene. Bucs defense, ultimate contrarian play here, right? I mean, I guess you're getting the idea that Josh Allen is turnover prone, but boy, it just seems like this could be a tough one where he could even throw an interception or two, and that Bucs defense isn't optimal because he throws 4 touchdowns as well.
Yeah, if you're playing the Bucs D, you're playing for a pick six basically, because that's that's the only way that they're going to pay off. Let's say maybe they get like 3 sacks or 2 sacks, like a pick six, like that would be 10 points right there. So you're playing for like 10 points, and they 3.6K salary. You could do worse for 3,600, but if you're building a script where the Bucs are keeping it close, or they're keeping it competitive, I think that their defense is going to have to play a role too. And their defense does have a lot of takeaways. They just do they have any touchdowns? Like, how many touchdowns did they have so far this season? Let's see, game log. I don't see their touchdowns, but they've been getting a ton of interceptions, and Josh Allen's actually thrown 7 interceptions so far this season. So it does raise the opportunity for a pick six tonight. So just keep that in mind with the Bucs if you're looking for cheap options down here. Trey Palmer is another cheap option down here because he's a fast receiver. He hasn't gotten targeted a ton. He got 7 targets a couple weeks ago, so he hasn't really done anything. He's gotten like a couple games where he scored 8 points. He's got 3 games where he scored 8 points. Actually, one of those was a 6.7 point game. He's a little bit interesting because the Bills have been vulnerable in the middle of the field. Last week when Mac Jones played them, he was 17 of 20 targeting the middle of the field, and 195 of his 272 yards came from attacking the slot cornerbacks and linebackers. And Trey Palmer is the slot receiver in this offense. So that makes him a little bit interesting if you're looking for a dart throw at 4,200. Spread, what are your thoughts?
Then it shows you how much that DraftKings and these bookmakers expect Buffalo to blow them out, that Trey Palmer is more than the Bucs defense.
It's crazy that he's 42.
Do you understand my point there? I mean, we're getting when they're making these prices, they're giving us a game script as well, right?
Yeah.
And the game script that I'm seeing is Bills by blowout, because I can't believe that Palmer it costs more than the Bucs defense.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the things with Gamescript, man. We can assume one thing, right? Like, let's take that Minnesota game the other day, right? Like, everybody was thinking that Minnesota was going to get killed, and they came out with an aggressive game plan, and they ended up winning the game, right? They hit like right away, right? And they just kept hammering, and they were aggressive throughout the game, and it shows what you can do with an aggressive game plan. Like, if you get those, first couple shots to go your way, like if Tampa Bay would come out with an aggressive game plan tonight against that defense, and they, hit on like maybe a long Mike Evans touchdown, like right off the bat, and then their running game gets going, and then they're able to, slow the Bills down a little bit. The Bills are a little shell shocked, and they got a lot of pressure on them with all these tight games against like teams like the Giants, and losing to the Patriots, and then losing to the Jags too. There's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen right now, and the Bills, when they get in these losing spurts, they come in spurts, man. Like, so there is an opportunity for Tampa Bay. I wouldn't write them off completely. I think that obviously the most likely way that this game goes down is with the blowout, but I do think there are arguments to make for like a Tampa Bay heavy side that make a lot of sense. It just, this game could go off the rails. It's a Thursday night game too, like on top of that. And we see all these weird things happen in Thursday night games. I think, Tampa Bay, I'd say, like, oh, well, they're on the road too, and the Bills, but Tampa Bay's been playing better against, teams while they're on the road. So that on top of everything else is, it's just a lot of things to kind of challenge the common perception tonight that the Bills are just going to, blow out Tampa, which is still the most likely outcome. But if we're looking to compete against 20% of the field as opposed to 80% of the field, we want to search for those like unlikely outcomes that we can kind of build around. And I think one of those is obviously the easiest one is a 4-2 Tampa build when 14% of the ownership is going to be on those builds tonight.
Simon, saying the Buccaneers have no chance, that's like walking through a dog park barefoot.
Yeah.
Most likely you're going to be fine.
Right.
But there's a chance that you're going to step in something and you're going to regret it, right? So this isn't college football. Right? You can say that certain teams have no chance, right, against Alabama or USC in the powerhouses. Even the worst teams have a lot of talent here. So no team ever has no chance. And Monday night was a perfect illustration of that, as everyone loved that 49ers bounce back spot. Wanted to fade Kirk Cousins in prime time, and the Minnesota Vikings get the victory. With that being said, let's get a couple builds started, though. Even though we said, they have a chance. Let's start with the Bills' dominant one. How do we approach this? Who's our captain? Of course, we still want to avoid being too chalky here because we talked about it with the prices today. There's not going to be a lot of options. You can't just jam every top player in there and punt one position. How do we approach this with the Bills' heavy build? Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, or are we taking up too much salary if we do that?
I think we go with Diggs in the captain, just because he's the cheaper of those two, and it'll save us. Like we're going to need every dollar we can get tonight. And I think,
especially if you start with Diggs, 17-1 there. Now we have 32.9, so I'm at 6,500 for my remaining available players. So by choosing Diggs, I think what we do now is we scroll down below 4K because we're going to have to, right? If you choose Diggs, you got to put one of these guys in there because I'm not going a bunch of 6K guys from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, we're if we have Diggs in the captain too, we're going to want to put Allen in most likely because Allen just has the top raw point upside.
And now we've done it, and we're down to 52.75 per player. And I'm not saying we can't do it, but I'm just saying we made things hard for ourselves. So this is going to be a fun build, but I can't wait to do a little more flexible one right after that. So we got Diggs at captain at 17-1. Josh Allen's in there at 11-8. We only have 21-1. So we spent more than half our salaries on two spots, Simon. How do we afford this, right, Simon? I'm a new home buyer. I'm looking at 8% interest rate and prices that have gone up 25% since the pandemic. Simon, how do we afford this?
I think people are going to be looking at Auden and they're going to be looking at Shakir. I think those are going to be the first guys that people look at, because they stick out like sore thumbs in this below, this 3K range, right? So let's put in maybe Auden into this build, unless you think Shakir would be better, like with Allen already in the lineup.
Well, here's the thing: if we're going this heavy build, I don't want to waste all my money on the run back, right?
Right.
So I want cheap bucks to run it back with, right? So let's go with Auden.
Okay.
Because, this is my Bills heavy build. I don't want to spend too much on Tampa because I'm loading up on these Bills. And, this is the 37-10 final score where Buffalo wins and the majority of casual fans are watching NBA by halftime.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have to get another cheap guy in there regardless. So maybe we put Shakir in there too anyways, like just to get another cheap guy in there, and we can see what that leaves us with. 74.5.
I have an interesting way to do this start.
Yeah, like which direction would you
I don't
go?
think you need to go that low.
Yeah.
With Shakir.
Okay.
So now I think you choose the three here. You got to choose two of these three between Kincaid, Murray, and Bill's defense. Two of the three, you're going to have Godwin available as a run back in a game trailing script where he should get a majority of those targets from the 20 to 20. And if the Buccaneers don't give it in the end zone or only get it once and it doesn't go to Evans, Godwin's the most viable player on the Buccaneers in this script that we built where we're anticipating a huge Bills win. Do you see my point?
Yep, I totally. Yeah, no.
So, for the people, if you want to do this start, I like it. And you choose one of the three: Bills defense, Kincaid, Murray. You choose two of the three. I mean, right?
Yeah,
and multiple builds. I guess you can do a lot of the different. Just you can get both of them in there, right? And just kind of find fun ways to do that.
This is a good build. Like I can totally see this being, like one of the more popular builds on the night because it makes a lot of sense from a, like a game script, telling a story wise too. Because you got Josh Allen, you got him throwing to Diggs. Josh Allen's in there throwing to Diggs and Kincaid. Diggs and Kincaid are racking up those PPR points. He connects with Diggs on a couple touchdowns, enough to put Diggs over Allen in that scoring. And then, like we were talking about on the other side, they're targeting Otten in the middle against that weakened, like middle field that Buffalo's defense has right now. And you got Godwin on the outside, who is also vulnerable on the Bills side. So that all makes a lot of sense. And then adding in that last piece, like if you wanted to add in Murray, maybe Murray is another thing that helps to reduce Allen's captain likability as well, because instead of Allen being able to run in those touchdowns, Murray's coming in and poaching those touchdowns. So that would help explain why Allen's not a captain tonight too. So like there's a lot of McLaughlin, I probably wouldn't go there. Bills D, like Spread was saying, if it's going to be a blowout, Bills D probably is going to play a big role in that. You could go Shakir if you wanted to leave salary. If you wanted to get a little different, I think that's where you leave Shakir and leave a little bit of salary on the table. But then at that point, you got too many Bills receivers on there, and Josh Allen would probably need to be swapped into the captain spot. So yeah, this is a good direction Spread, I think, for that chalkier build.
Yeah, that's fun. Let's move on and let's go. Let's try another Bills build. And, humor me. Let's start with either Kincaid or Cook in the captain. You can choose there. To be fair, though, if we really want a lot of the salary relief, Kincaid 7,500, Cook 12,900.
Yeah. Now, what I would think here, if I'm going to put him in the captain, like if we got word that Vita Vea is out, I think that makes Cook a lot more interesting in a captain perspective. So do you want to go with Cook and just
let's do it. It's Vita Vea's out lineup. Cook.
Yeah.
Cook's our captain, and already how much more fun are we having, Simon? As now we have 74-20 left for our last five players, and we can really start jamming some of these guys in here. So we're going to do that. Now I can afford anyone. Oh, wow. How do we want to go on this script then? Are we going 4-2 Bills again?
Yeah, I think I think we put Diggs in there for sure.
Okay.
Bills D correlates with Cook because we're assuming that they're playing with a pretty significant lead, right?
So with Diggs and Bills D in there, we still have $7K left per player. Simon, we have plenty of options here. Who do we run it back with in this build? Godwin again? I think he's the best run back.
Yeah, I think he is. He's got like a neck thing, but it sounds like he's good to go tonight. Let's take a look at that blurb real quick we're
we go Godwin. We go with I know we said we weren't going to target him, but we need to do something cheap on these big builds. Let's throw their kicker in. They fail in the red zone. That kind of correlates with Godwin. Got 8,900 left on my last spot there, Simon.
Yep. You got
but now I got no one to spend it on. Because the next one there is Rashad White.
Right.
Or I drop all the way to 6,800 on Gabe Davis. So if I add Davis, now I'm going to take this kicker out.
The problem
still
with
don't land anywhere interesting at all. Don't land anywhere interesting at all.
The problem with having Davis in with that too is we don't have Allen in there. We need a way that Allen is not in this lineup.
All right, let's go Allen and then see where. Now we're really dumpster diving if we put Allen in there. And we're going to dumpster dive on the Tampa Bay side. I'm landing right here on this guy Tompkins, who's had pretty safe to get 3 to 4 targets at 1,600.
Let's see. If one thing that we could do, Otten. What if we took out the Bills D and put in Otten? That would give us 3,100 with this Allen build. That just puts us in that same spot. It puts us 100 short of Shakir. Still,
give them credit tonight. This isn't an easy build, is it, Simon?
We've been spoiled spread because we've been able to come in here and just like rattle off these lineups, and now we're actually like trying to figure things out.
I think the advantage though is we're gonna see less dupes up top.
Yeah.
Right, because it felt like you just went with the script. Hey, I got this team winning by this much, and the lineup just built itself. Okay, let's do the run back. Let's see what happens if the underdog wins. The lineup builds itself. Not so fast tonight, because I think we've just illustrated by having fun with this exercise that even if we like the Bills and we nail the Gamescript, let's just say it's 37-10. There's going to be a lot of different ways that this lineup can go.
Yep.
Some tough decisions here tonight.
I just took out like Diggs and put in Gabe Davis, like assuming that like if Josh Allen's not in the captain, maybe like Diggs is having a down night and Gabe Davis is the guy that he's targeting tonight instead. So, that gives us 7,700 left with that final spot, but we're in that same spot, man. We're like, we could put in Tyler Bass, but we'd have 2K left on the table. Like Kincaid, we could put in there too. It would be options, but it's like, do you want to leave 2K on the table in a matchup with all these studs? It's just like, it's not a fun way to build tonight. So, but I mean, like that kind of gives you an idea of, like direction you can go with, like these.
One thing I noticed here, if you start with Allen and Gabe Davis, Allen captain, Gabe Davis second, you're going to end up in that 4,400 range on your last couple.
All right. Yeah, then that makes.
You see what I'm saying? Sure. Now I got.
Yep.
What do you have left? 7,350. So yeah, I got. Remember we talked about this range, kind of thinking this is where we want to win the tournament here. Is you get that range right? You got a lot of options in there. I kind of like following there. Now, I don't love this because we're fading Diggs, and doesn't it seem like Diggs has got the great matchup? So yeah. I just entered one of these lineups, right? I finished it off, but really, I mean, this is super contrarian.
Yeah.
Right. This is just when I hit enter there, I'm saying, well, it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the same like trap that we're falling into. Yeah.
It's the NFL. It doesn't really make sense that the Vikings beat the 49ers, who I had as the best team in the NFL going into that game. So let's have some fun with it. I think that's fun. I wouldn't use that template though to build 10 or 20 different lineups. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's a tough fade. We're gonna have to take some stands though. All right. Are we
Yeah.
good with Bills? Do we want to go super contrarian now?
Yeah.
And let's see
Let's
the
do the
Buccaneers
Tampa. Let's do the
shock the
Tampa.
world, right? First take is all, what's wrong with the Bills? You know. All right. So we're going to do that. We got to assume if that happens, I think that we go either White or Mayfield to captain.
Yeah, I'm with
Let's
White
go
at
Mayfield.
the top.
They have to win a shootout.
All right. Let's see.
Okay. And he's still only 13-8 at the captain spot. We're at 7,200 left. We can have some fun with it. If this goes well, we got to choose a receiver. Let's use Godwin on our Bills. Let's go ahead with some Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns in the red zone, a couple big plays. If Tampa Bay wins, I like Evans to get in the end zone a lot more than Godwin. I think he's a great run back there. And I see, who else did you throw in there? So you have Mayfield. Who's your second?
Oh, I thought you said put in Evans. Okay, we'll take Evans out there.
No, I do want Evans. So on my screen, I got Mayfield, Evans so far. That's it.
Yeah.
So I got 65.50 here. On a Mayfield Evans start, where do we go next?
I think here maybe we go with either Otten or Trey Palmer attacking that middle of the field. Which one do you prefer out of those?
Otten, because we need the salary relief.
Okay. So we got Otten. So now let's think of our run back here. Our run back, it's got, in my opinion, it's got to be Diggs or Allen.
All right, Allen's only 400 more. We got the rushing upside and maybe the short yardage touchdown upside. Let's go with Allen.
Right, because if the Bucs are winning, it's because like Diggs isn't catching.
Right.
So yeah, Allen leaves us with 5,700 left.
All right, in this script, we got some turnovers. Let's throw that Bucs defense in.
Yep.
Allen's made some mistakes here. Maybe a fumble. Wasn't even his fault. Buccaneers come up with a big play. And now 7,800.
Well, I think
this one built itself.
I think we got to go with the Bills there for that last pick personally. But like for people watching, like you could go Godwin there. Like if you want to go like super crazy on that build.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, I mean that's a 5-1
and then rebuild it and then run another one with Gabe Davis.
Yeah, there you go. Right? Like there you go. You get some.
You got one of each, and now I got my 2 little Tampa builds, and I'm kind of out of the way there on my Tampas, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean you can even do that and like put in a guy like Bass. Bass would make sense in a build like that where Allen's kind of spreading the ball out. They're getting to the red zone, but they're not able to convert. And, like Bass is coming in, scoring like maybe a few 50-yard touchdowns. And then, people aren't going to want to put Bass in there with Allen. So you're going to have a little differentiation. But, I mean, just starting the Bucs versus the, like the 4 or 5 Bucs in there in itself is going to be different anyway. So, don't worry about getting too different with this. But I think a lot of people that, like start like a certain way with a build like this, maybe they will end up on Godwin in this or Davis. So it does make sense to leave a couple thousand on the table if you want to try for that solo hit and put like Bass in there, Like I think like another direction that I like to go, we were considering him or Mayfield in the beginning. I think if we go with White, let's say the Bucs are able to get that running game going and White gets that 100-yard game and, he's used in the passing game too. I think we can get Allen and Diggs in there. Like if we got Allen and Diggs, the guys on the other side making some noise. With this direction, I think we can go down to, let's see, Godwin again. Let's say that Godwin, gets it together tonight, and he's able to get it going tonight too. It still leaves you with some options. You can go like Otten if you want to go like a 4-2, and that leaves you with options like the Bucs D, like we were talking about before. Khalil Shakir, if you want to go that way, you got some options with a direction like this too. But I kind of like that Mayfield build where that left us off spread. I think that left us with a lot of options.
Sorry, I missed it just a little bit right there. But I see
no
we have White, Allen, Diggs, Godwin, Otten, and how much do we have left there? 4K, huh?
4K, yeah. So it leaves us in a spot where we could put in that Bucs D and this type of build too. Correlates with White. You could go Shakir, like if give Allen a second receiver there. There are ways that you can go in a build like this, but I kind of like that other build where we got like Diggs kind of shut down. So let's take Diggs out. Let's put in Gabe Davis. Maybe Gabe Davis is the guy that Allen is throwing to 8,600. We could take Davis out and put in Baker Mayfield, Kincaid. Let's see. Yeah, I mean that leaves us with Kincaid, Bass. If we want to put that Bass in with Allen again, yeah, I mean Kincaid to being the top receiver, like assuming that Stephon Diggs is getting shut down, and then Gabe Davis is doing his usual Gabe Davis disappearance act. That leaves Kincaid left to get those catches, and throwing the ball to Kincaid isn't going to elevate Allen into a captain role. So Allen is kind of having to run it out and throw to Kincaid for those PPR points, while Baker Mayfield is hitting Godwin and Otten on the other side, and White is running in touchdowns and also working in the receiving game. Maybe a receiving touchdown to White, receiving touchdown to Otten, and then Godwin's racking up PPR points.
Yeah, it's just tough slate. I think it's a lot of fun though, Simon. Right?
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, there's so many different possibilities tonight.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Credit to them on their pricing. This isn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, super tight on the pricing. Like it's a lot of guys that normally fall pretty cheap are going to be difficult to get in tonight. And you don't have those easy salary savers tonight either. You're going to have to make some real decisions tonight. And so you're going to want to keep an eye on the injury news for sure. Keep an eye on inactives for sure, just in case you get any surprise inactives if you're trying to dumpster dive. Like there's going to be some decision making in this slate. So make sure to hit 15 likes on this video. I'll put out a video later on if we get that 15 likes where I put my 4 favorite plays on the slate. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then Spread, where can they find you?
I'm at Spread Astaire. We're doing tons of stuff. I won't take all the time to run it all down right now. X on Spread Astaire. I tweet out all my content. NBA's rolling. We're still knocking out the NFL stuff too. It's been a lot of fun, Simon.
Yeah, for sure. And Spread's got a show in 10 minutes, so make sure to catch that. Which channel is that on?
So we'll be doing Fan Speak. It's the NFL betting card with Meg. We'll give out a side, a total, and then Meg and Tyler do great with the player props and the touchdown props.
Awesome. All right, guys, make sure to check out Spread on FanSpeak, and we'll see you next time. Good luck.